Good morning. Happy Sunday. If you drank too much last night, I hope you're feeling better. If you didn't, well, welcome to the world of the living. I watched one video and I saw a thumbnail, and I'm going to comment on those two things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to comment on the thumbnail that I saw on James Freeman. I couldn't bring myself to watch the video. I have no idea what the video is about, but James Freeman once again shows he has no understanding of what he's talking about. He equates the city or the state or whoever it was. He was showing an exempt tag, an exempt license plate. By exempt, it doesn't have to be registered. And by registered, I mean they don't have to pay the registration fees or whatever other licensing fees that your average citizen would have to pay every year or 2 years or however often that particular state has their program set up. And the reason for it is probably something along the lines of the vehicle was a city or a state vehicle, or it was a federal vehicle that for some reason had to get state plates. Normally you see federal vehicles with US plates, but I guess it could happen where they get state plates. Anyway, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for states to require state vehicles to pay those licensing fees, because the money goes from the state to the state, i.e. it doesn't leave anybody's fucking bank account. It's dumb. They shouldn't have to license their own vehicles. Putting a plate on it's fine. It shows who the vehicle belongs to, clearly. But having to put the tags on it every year, the stickers or however your state does it, is pretty dumb. Because in addition to no money leaving anybody's bank account, there is a cost associated with making tickets, with mailing them, with the amount of time spent working to place them on the license plates themselves. There's a cost associated with it that does no good purpose. So it doesn't make any sense to require a state to pay licensing fees for its own fucking vehicles. And if the state requires the city to pay licensing fees for city vehicles, that's just a double tax. That is just a double tax. That doesn't make any sense for you. Because if the city has to pay the state these fees, the city will get the fees from you, because the city gets all of its money from the taxpayers in the city. So essentially it's just a double tax. That doesn't make any sense for anybody. And of course the state cannot tax the federal government. Just can't do it. Sovereign immunity. So they're not squeezing any tax money out of good old Uncle Sam. Not happening. Uncle Sam squeezes lots of tax money out of the citizens and sends a good chunk of that money to the states for the states to use to supplement the state incomes. Use them for roads and bridges and schools and stuff like that. That's a lot of talking about a license plate, John. Why are you talking about a license plate? Well, sovereign citizens will oftentimes make their own license plates, and they'll say that they're immune. They are not engaged in commerce. They don't have to abide by the licensing agreements. They may cite UCC statutes or UCC codes. I guess technically the UCC isn't it's a model uniform commercial code. It's not states can adopt whatever portions of it they want and reject whatever portions of it they want and modify whatever portions of it they want, or they can reject it entirely or adopt it entirely, etc. I mean, it's just a model. It's not binding, but they'll still cite it because they're dumb and they don't understand physics, or not physics. It's early. They don't understand civics. So James has it in his head that anybody with a plate like that, I'm assuming, must be a sovereign citizen. He's been trying to say that cops are sovereign citizens for a long period of time. Well, let's examine why sovereign citizens are sovereign citizens. The state has the power to compel people to follow the law. They have that power. A sovereign citizen, for a while anyway, would call themselves a sovereign citizen, but they would reject that power. How they got there is confused, and it's not consistent. A lot of times they would suggest that they're natural citizens. They're not Article 14 citizens, referring to Article 14, or the 14th Amendment, excuse me. The Bill of Rights, the 14th Amendment. They may have other ways of getting there. That's not really the point. The point is that they believe that they have the power to contract or refuse to contract with the federal government and or the state governments, because they get them confused. They think they have the power to opt out of various laws, like Social Security, like registering your vehicle, like paying taxes, things like that. And of course, they're not very bright and they're very confused. So they will attempt to use actual laws and actual case rulings to support their nonsensical positions. But at the end of the day, they are trying desperately to not have to abide by the rulings, the laws of the governments, the various governments that have authority over them, that have jurisdiction over them. It's one of the things they like to say, you don't have jurisdiction over me. Dudes, you're in handcuffs in my courtroom. Obviously, I have jurisdiction over you. That is just apparent. Anyway. So, confusing the sovereign citizen, attempting unsuccessfully to opt out of licensing requirements for vehicles is not analogous to a state not wasting taxpayer dollars for once and requiring state and local vehicles to put tags on their license plates. And also, of course, James doesn't understand that officers acting in their official capacity do have more powers and more protections for the engaging in those powers than your average citizen would. It's because of the nature of their job. It's what their job requires. And so the legislatures or the courts give them those additional powers and protections. It's for the smooth and efficient policing of society, because yes, policing is necessary. Which leads me to my next point. Just like requiring cities and states and federal governments to pay for vehicle licensing doesn't work, making them pay parking tickets also doesn't work. If a municipality wants to write a parking ticket for its own vehicle, well, that's dumb. You're paying an employee to write the ticket. You're paying the employee to mail the ticket. You're paying for the cost of mailing the ticket. You're paying another employee to write a check from the city to the city, etc. Because parking tickets are paid by the owner of the vehicle. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is, of course, sovereign immunity. That a city can't force the state to pay a tax or a fine. The state is sovereign over the city, and the federal government is sovereign over the state. So just like paying for vehicle licensing Doesn't make sense. Paying parking tickets doesn't make sense. Do cities and state agencies and federal agencies sometimes abuse their privileges? Absolutely. But it's still a necessary privilege for them to have, especially as emergency vehicles. It's oftentimes coded, or at least sometimes coded into the statutes that there are exemptions for them. Anyway, which leads me to Jack's video, Texas Sheepdog 72. A police officer's private vehicle was getting a parking ticket. And Jack, number one, thought that was a newsworthy enough event to film it. And number two, to be as completely obnoxious of an asshole as he possibly could be during it. Was the officer wrong to park his personal vehicle in violation of whatever parking ordinances there were? Yes. Yes, Jack. Does that justify you somehow in eating on his hood and being a dick about it? You can't leave until I finish my food. I mean, you're just being a dick, Jack. Who are you thinking that you're going to convince that somehow you were justified in doing that? Everybody will admit the officer was wrong. Everybody will admit that the parking ticket was good. No one's questioning that, Jack. But you had to take a position. You had to operate in a time, place, and manner, not to invoke First Amendment things, in such a way as to remove the focus from the officer's bad behavior to making him look like the good guy. From the few seconds I watched of it, he was calm, he was patient, he didn't resort to violence, he didn't do anything untoward towards you, and as far as I know, because I couldn't handle it, he let you finish your fucking meal. He got a parking ticket, you were an asshole. You have no idea what you look like from the public side, do you, Jack? I know you have your little sycophants and your little supporters, but I don't think you understand at all how the public would view that kind of behavior. Your uneducated ass chomping loudly on your barbecue while you berate an officer who's doing nothing but being polite to you as you're eating your barbecue on his hood. What a fucking dick. You should be ashamed of yourself. Your mother didn't raise you right, boy. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.